Hello everyone, Verb here. Today I'll be talking about pace chasers in the Leo Cup. This is CM16 or the Sprint CM. Two things before I begin. First of all, if you are new, welcome. But if you are unaware, this is a specific role guide, which means I'll be going over the skills cards and characters and going pretty far into depth into the skills, telling you when and why they work, but for pace chasers only. If you're looking for a more broad overview, the video that this video builds upon is the Leo Cup overview, so that is available if you wish. The second more important thing is that on 6/24, Cygames announced that there would be a patch on July 1st that would change a lot of aspects of this game, but in particular, there were skill changes, and these skill changes will affect this Champions meeting, but they are not 100% confirmed, as I stated in that video. They are aligning with certain JP patches, which makes it seem like they will be implemented, but again, Cygames could just pick and choose to go and implement some skills and not the others. So how I'm going to handle it in this video is that for you people watching, there will be this little 7-1 changes in orange underneath the skill or the character that is changed because of the 7-1 patches. And for you radio viewers, do not worry. I will be talking about both of all the effect of the change, as well as tell you when a skill is going to change as well. So I find it's very important that I go and put this disclaimer out that, hey, some of this stuff is unconfirmed, and I will tell you when that stuff is unconfirmed because there is meta implications for this stuff, and I don't want you going all in on something that is not going to be as effective as if they were to put it in the game. Although what I will say is on 7-1, we will know at that point, and in the description I will put, hey, everything's all good with the 7-1 changes, or here are the changes that are not implemented in it. So you will know on 7-1 whether or not everything is 100% confirmed. So let's begin and talk about pace chasers. Are pace chasers good? Yes, I think they're going to be the primary role. Are they the strongest role? It's going to be between them and frontrunners, in my opinion. However, pace chasers are just simply a lot easier to build, so I think they will be the most common role that you will see in this Champions meeting. The reason is that, hey, they have the most tools available out of all four of the roles. You have 2 positional based guaranteed accelerations, and yes, they are 3rd through 4th. If you hit 3rd or 4th, you hit 0.4 with Taiki Shuttle Shooting for Victory and Budding Blossom, which means you have the acceleration required to win the race, and you can just go and focus on speed skills at that point. You also do not really get affected by PDM too much because the frontrunners usually have enough skills that you're not really going to have to worry about it. And also, before, the problem with pace chasers was going to be that you could just be boxed out by frontrunners, and if 3rd place was not available to you, you were just kind of gambling at that point. And the 7-1 changes specifically to head-on makes it so that gamble is a lot better. So that really goes and increases your chance of victory in this Champions meeting and makes pace chasers rather powerful. The problems with pace chasers is, one, because they are so easy to build and because they are powerful, it's going to be a very cluttered position. There's going to be a lot of pace chasers, and that means a lot of blocking of skills and a lot of frustration. Should that dissuade you from playing them? No, but just note that, hey, there's a lot more randomness to pace chasing because there's just going to be a lot of them. You also need late race, okay? Because pace chasers do not have a very high speed coefficient, even though this is a very short spurt that really helps these frontrunners and pace chaser players, you still need at least a singular late race speed skill because your coefficient is just not that much higher than the frontrunners themselves. Also, if you're running Fine Motion to get Speed Star is an Agima-sen, which means Fine Motion could just decide not to give you it, which is frustrating, but if your parents are good enough, you can go and supplement with other white skills that give you similar value, but we will talk about Speed Star in a second. The stat requirements are pretty much the same as everyone else. The stamina requirement is pretty much fake because you most likely will need stamina for the Japanese Oaks anyways, and the game will most likely give you between 400 to 600 stamina anyways, and 300 is the requirement. Otherwise, if you're running speed, power, wit, try to max your speed, power, and wit, but I'd say you need like 1200 speed, try to get 1100 power, 1000 wit. These are ideal stats, and try to get that guts up a little bit if you can, if you have extra taps available. Otherwise, if you are running the guts build, you can sacrifice a tiny bit of power and wit, bringing it down to 1000 to 900 to boost that guts stat as high as possible. Roughly 1000, I think, is where most people are going to do, but the pace chaser stamina coefficient is not really going to affect too much. For skills, your primary acceleration still should be Shooting for Victory and Budding Blossom. I'd say you need at least one of these to hit a 0.2 plus another skill I'll be talking about later. Shooting for Victory and Budding Blossom have the same conditions essentially. they are third or fourth. Shooting for victory can only happen on the corner, and budding blossom can happen later, but budding blossom requires a challenge in the mid race. Because there's going to be so many pace chasers, I think that condition is not really going to be a problem. So one's not necessarily better than the other. They're kind of interchangeable, honestly, in my opinion. But perhaps Nishino Flower is slightly better in that respect this time. For secondary accelerations, I was going to put head-on and neck because they are gamble accelerations, and before you wouldn't really care about neck and neck too much. However, this is a 7-1 change. Basically, it is changing to the first half of the late race rather than the whole late race, which basically means that head-on has guaranteed 0.8 lengths. If you look before, a shooting for victory is about 1.3 lengths as well, and the maximum for head-on is roughly 1.5, and neck is 3 lengths, which means this is upgraded to a primary acceleration option. You don't necessarily need it, but having head-on plus one or the other, or having all three, is very, very powerful, and this is kind of what puts you able to fight against the front-runner box-out strategy of people running triple front-runner, is that, hey, you can still just lucky proc head-on, and it's going to happen like every other run, and you're still going to pass them because you just need a single speed carryover plus a 0.2, and you're going to get a very good chance of just beating them at that point. So this stops an entire strategy. Not saying that the 3 front runner strategy is bad or the runaway double front strategy is bad. It's still incredibly powerful due to pace up, but this is something that pace chasers now have that they didn't have before if these 7-1 changes were to occur. Okay, so do not go and sleep on head on. If it appears, go right ahead and grab it. It's a very good skill. For tertiary accelerations, or accelerations that are slightly less useful, Nimble Navigator and No Stopping Me are a little bit troublesome, quite troublesome, because this is so far along on the final corner that you will most likely choose your lane, and if you decide to wide swing, it is kind of just done. Like, you're not going to be able to Nimble Nav because you will be in Narnia and you won't be on anywhere close to other Umas. Otherwise, a little bit of a late proc is Curran Chan Wedding if you are running the character. It's very good. Not necessarily required at all because it's just a final straight skill, or 300 meters, I can't remember which. Otherwise, IG Power is just the full late race, which lowers its value over head-on. Turbo Sprint does have a 7-1 change we'll talk about. Right now, it's a little late proc, so if the 7-1 change doesn't go, I wouldn't pick it. Same with I Never Goof Up, because I Never Goof Up can only happen on that corner itself as well. But we're going to talk about the 7-1 changes here. Turbo Sprint removes the straight requirement completely and just is a random late race skill. So it basically is a gold current neck and neck option. So it is basically half the value of a neck and neck, and it's basically the same value as a head-on, but it is a gold skill, which means it can high roll and give you 4 lengths, which is ridiculous if it decides to proc immediately. But remember, this is a gambling acceleration. Same thing with I Never Goof Up. I don't think many people are going to even have this because it's just Doto is very hard to make parents out of. But basically, this is a supplementary acceleration, 0.1, that hopefully you will pass someone pretty quickly when you hit any other accelerations. Before, it was really, really risky because you can only hit it on the corner, so you had to pass somebody pretty quickly. Now, basically, you can do it at any point in the late race, so it's just a supplementary acceleration option that I need to mention, that if the 7-1 changes occur, that, hey, it's going to be pretty good. Like, it's going to be fine. But the problem is that I don't think you're going to find any parents with it. Otherwise, some gamble accelerations. Of this in the list, Corner Con's probably the best because it's still just a, 1 in 6, basically. A little bit more than that. I think it's maybe a 1 in 7. But I don't think it's as good as the Mile CM because I think the corner's a little bit longer this time. But it's still an option, and I see people taking it even on front runners just because you need something extra, and acceleration is so powerful. It is an additional 4 lengths, which on a sprint track is incredible if it does decide to hit. So if you have extra skill points, which you probably will because it's a sprint CM, you could take it as an option. Same thing with Plan X. Plan X actually is a little bit worse. It's about 25% worse than Corner Connoisseur because while it doesn't have any late race proc, you see how Corner Connoisseur has basically 2 ramps. It can either proc here or it can proc on its way down. So its effective value is basically 100 meters over the, I think, 700 meters that it is. Plan X only has the first bit, so it's about 50 meters of use over the 350 before, so it's about a 1 in 8 rather than a 1 in 7, let's say. Meticulous Measures is basically the worst of all worlds. It is the entirety of the mid-race, where Plan X is the second half, and it's also can only proc in the mid-race, so it's worse than Corner Con. So it is worse than all three of these, and you probably just go and kill Current Chain and just get PTO at that point. Those are the accelerations. I'm going to grab a drink real quick. These are the early races. So early race is going to be quite important for pace chasers because you just have so many tools. You do have groundwork, just like the front runners. If you do groundwork plus 3 greens, you have intimidate because you are front half of the pack, which means you can debuff the people behind you, but you will not hit the front runners. You will just hit the pace chasers, late surges, and end closes behind you. It basically is a white skill, to be honest. Otherwise, straight descent and determined descent, due to the downhill at the 0 mark, basically, it will either proc, and you can kind of see here, immediately and get massive value, or it will proc a little bit late, and it doesn't really show it here because the sim didn't actually grab any, but basically the transfer between early race to mid race also increases your target speed, and you basically get a white skills value from straight descent. Note that this does not really increase that much with the determined descent because determined descent is a 0.3 while straight descent is a 0.2, and basically there's really not much difference. Like the same thing with shrewd step here. It's good. Like it has value. It has white skill value. Shrewd step is fine. It's not like a PDM break, and there isn't any real PDM breaks in this one. So look at this. It's 0.3 additional for determined descent. I think that 9 times out of 10, you can find something better than the 160 skill points that you're going to grab for determined descent over straight descent. So just get the white version of straight descent. You can get shrewd step, it works. You can get groundwork, it works. Intimidate's fine in the early race. You have so many options as a pace chaser in that neither corner nor straight in the early race. Otherwise, your mid-race velocity is quite important. Particularly all corner skills are mid-race this time. So Professor of Curvature is quite good. It is the entirety of the corners that are in the mid-race, so it's about 75% of the time of the mid-race. Otherwise, Umamusume works. Umamusume will proc rather early. It is after. It is too short of a track, of course, for PDM breaking. In High Spirits is the, I guess, the primary gold skill that people are going for, or Light as a Feather, because it is second half of the mid-race, and it has a slightly higher chance of speed carryover, and then of course pace chaser corners and sprints. Now notably, if you look here, the corner skills have a dead zone, while the second half of mid-race and the total mid-race skills have a do not have a dead zone, and this is why we need to talk about speed star and final corner skills. Allegedly, fine motion gives the skill, but either way, prepared pass and speed star are very interesting because their actual expected value is lower than Professor of Curvature even. Base Professor of Curvature has 0.5 if it hits, and we can just cancel out these last two. And still, if we do the math here, 250 meters of uptime with 40 meters worth of speed carryover and 100 meters worth of eaten by acceleration zone, which is when the corner ends and the late race, you basically 29% of the time get no value from the skill, and 71% of the time get value from the skill with 11% of carryover. If you do the math, basically multiplying the effect times the actual chance of it occurring, you find that this skill, even though it does max out at 1.73 lengths, which is incredibly powerful, really has an effective value of 0.466 lengths, which is less than the average gold skill. You can see, hey, Professor of Curvature is 0.5. You can see in High Spirits is 0.5 with a very high chance of speed carryover. It's like a 1 in 5. This skill, it's good. You should probably take it if she gives it to you. It's very expensive. It has a high chance of speed carryover at 11%. It will win your races, and there is value in saying, hey, a speed carryover will cause me to win races 11% of the time. Well, that's 11% of my win rate in addition. However, do note there is a dead zone for Speedstar because this is a Taiki map. It's a second half final corner. So just take that into consideration. All right. Final corner pass skills like Shadow Break, Blazing Pride, and Ravissant are a little bit risky on this track because it's quite difficult to pass on the final corner. And so if you don't pass pretty quickly on this final corner, you're likely to go and pass in the dead zone and lose the effect of it, because once the late race hits, you hit your accel and you're most likely passing someone pretty quickly, which means you lose the value of the skill. So you kind of have to incorporate it into a pass combo. You have to prime it in some way. Most times your primer is kind of just the Professor of Curvature hitting early, or like the pace chaser corners or sprints, and that's perfectly fine. But do note that slipstream is kind of the big one that primes this normal pass combo. We've talked about the pass combo, slipstream into ramp up it's on, into playtime's over. This kind of, we can expand this to be like, there's a bunch of ultimates in the game. I chose Nemesis as an example, but like it's a 0.15, let's be honest, but like Bono Alt kind of does the same thing. Those 50% mark ultimates kind of prime this combo quite well. Not necessarily need to inherit them, but slipstream plus it's on plus playtime's over or your final corner pass skill, if it does decide to proc in the second half of the mid race, is quite powerful because you will probably complete the pass and hopefully not wide swing, whereas if you don't prime it, you're most likely procking this in that dead zone at the end point. So this is kind of the way to mitigate the risk of having these final quarter pass skills, because they are truly incredibly powerful, because they have quite a large chance of speed carryover, because all you need to do is delay proc it by about 75 meters, and then you're going to speed carry over, and that counts as your speed carryover into acceleration. Otherwise, to close out the race, I think you need at least one late race velocity skill. Pace chasers, like I said, are not too much faster than front runners, especially with all the skills that they're getting now. FCM, Firm Course Menace, is still a late race speed skill because it's just bonus speed. In Body and Mind works as well. Pace Chaser Straights, Sprint Straights works. Triumphant Pulse probably is your primary borrow for late race as a grandparent, because it's just guaranteed 200 meters going to proc when you're at max speed. There's very few skills in the game that are at that point. Lights of Vaudeville is very risky prior to the 7-1 changes. If they do implement the changes, this skill also becomes quite consistent, because the change is basically saying that before, if you were followed on the final straight, which is quite difficult to achieve on its own anyways, it would proc immediately, and a lot of times it would proc way too early when it was procking, and you would be eaten by the accel zone. Now, the precondition happens at the start of the late race, which means you are most likely all bunched up, so you most likely are followed, and then it will delay the proc into 300 meters, which makes it rather safe, because if you hit your 0.4, I know it says that there's a little bit of a ramp here, but if you hit your 0.4, this ramp goes away, and it's completely safe. It's the same thing with Sakura Chiona O Ultimate, if you were wondering. For cards, there's kind of a debate between your primary borrow. I think most people should just borrow Throne. It's such a powerful card. It gives you the skill points that you need. It gives you enough stats. Like, it's just the most powerful stat card in the game right now. There is an argument for Sakura Bakashino Guts. It's a very finicky card with no specialty priority. It does have high TEF to help you out, but at the end of the day, it's a Guts card that you want on Guts, but it does give the gold skill in High Spirits, along with a bunch of other stuff that we'll talk about when we get to it, but there's a lot of minor skills. But I still think primary borrow for most people should just be the Throne card. Throne's so good, and you can just go and be building parents and build your parents better and better and better, and use your skill points and skills that your parents give you, rather than going and just getting one singular gold skill and the extra bonus hints that we'll talk about. For speed cards, there's a lot of speed cards you can choose. If you happen to have a high LB copy of Seeking the Pearl Speed, she does give Light as a Feather on Chain and Umamusume as a random event, to be fair. And then she does have a bunch of different hints in Head On, Prepared to Pass, Pace Chaser Savvy, and Firm Conditions. And its speed output is not too terrible, to be honest. Otherwise, you do have Biko Pegasus and Sakura Bakashino Speed. These both are very high. They are very high speed output. And this is also another reason why Bakashin Guts, is an option. But if you do have a high LB copy of Bakashin Speed as well, you get most of the same hints that Bakashin Guts has as well. They have, Sprint Straight, Sprint Corners, Countermeasure, Intimidate, all the stuff that you're looking for in the front half, as well as Turbo Sprint, which is probably a little more useful than Plan X. We went over this, but Plan X is a gamble accel. Turbo Sprint, after the 7-1 changes, becomes basically like neck and neck or head on is now. So it is actually somewhat powerful as a secondary acceleration option, or I guess a tertiary acceleration option. Otherwise, near your top road, incredible speed power output with Firm Course Menace in kit, as well as you can just run Kittison Black for Professor of Curvature. Even you can run, if you are pulling on the card for front running, Marzensky Speed, or just Fuku Speed for the stats is quite good as well. Stamina, you don't really want to run a stamina card, but if you have it, I guess, 15% race bonus card with Speed Star and kit is Sakura Chiona O. For power cards, The 7-1 changes make this a little more interesting because Daisuke Power gives neck and neck is actually going to be quite powerful. She gives straight descent and Pace Chaser corners on hints as well, so there is an argument for using this card if you have it, as well as Yaina Miteki being the absolute, ridiculous utility card. Both of these would be utility cards in this rate, but Yaina Miteki gives you It's On or Playtime's Over, and basically 4 hints that if you hit them basically are like a bonus 200 skill points. This is basically Fast Learner if you hit 4 or 5 Yaina Miteki hints on a Pace Chaser. Otherwise, you do have Smart Falcon if you do just want to get groundwork and you happen to have the card because you're a frontrunner player. For Guts cards, you do have El Condorpasa Guts, which does give Speed Star guaranteed, I believe, as well as Head-On, Pace Chaser Savvy, and Pace Chaser Straights in kits. Sakura Bakashino Guts is the one people are talking about. In High Spirits is the gold version of Light as a Feather, which is good. It is second half of mid-race. It does have a higher chance of speed carryover and doesn't have a dead zone, which is very good. Then does give groundwork, countermeasure, sprinting gear, sprint straights, and sprint corners. But like I said, I think Throne is still a little bit better of a borrow. But if you do own this card, it does give you quite a few number of hints and does have good Guts output when it decides to actually get on Guts. Otherwise, Yukino Bijin does have Corner Connoisseur or Playtime's Over. And for Wit cards, you have Fine Motion, which gives you Speed Star on an Aguma Sen as well. So it can flip to be prepared to pass, and does give Nimble Navigator or right-handed. Otherwise, just run your best Wit card. Running this with Throne or running 2 Wit cards you just want the highest Wit possible. So you could run your Nice Nature for the race bonus or your Mr. CB for the Wit output. Does give Tail Held High, I believe, as well. Tail Held High, don't quote me on that one. I didn't mark it down, so maybe not. Otherwise, Current Chan does give you a few skills, but this card doesn't have as good of Wit output as the other 3. I would not suggest going and basically spending 15 race bonus on trying to get Determined Descent. Straight Descent is available in your rival races. And Determined Descent is only an additional 0.1, so I don't think it is necessary at all. Otherwise, you have the Throne card. Throne is ridiculous amounts of Wit, Speed, and Skill points, as well as giving you Pace Chaser straightaways on a random event. Otherwise, if you like gambling, you can do Sasami Anshinzawa for Nothing Ventured, as well as Umastan guaranteed as well, in fact. So people who are running this card know what they are doing. Otherwise, you most likely are filling up your deck with various event and SR cards. A lot of them are very good, the ones on the screen. You can run Current Chan, you can spend a little bit of race bonus, because it's only 5 race bonus to get Current Chan speed, or El Condorpasa speed. If you have a copy of this and have some gold shards remaining, it's not actually that bad for Pace Chasers. It has a lot of different hints for them. Pace Chaser, Corner, Straights, Head On, and Prepared to Pass, and is a 10 race bonus card. So we're leaving Shinko Windy of basically solo speed duty. Now you can run Shinko Windy and El Condorpasa. Shinko Windy's speed output is better. It is ridiculous, with Prepared to Pass in as well as a hint. Otherwise, for power cards, you can get Head On with Special Weak Power. You probably just grab this from your rival races, but if you just want it guaranteed, there you are. Otherwise, you most likely are running Nishino Power, or Marvelous Sunday Power, or both, for the 15% race bonus with the supplementary skills. Daitaku's Helios also gives Straight Descent as an option as well. If you're running Guts build, you most likely aren't doing it for the skills, but the 15% race bonus card, Ayabe Guts, is powerful, and you're probably running alongside Urara and the Yukino Bijin event card. There is technically Air Groove Guts as well, but it's 5% race bonus just for a chance as a hint for groundwork. Otherwise, for Wit cards, you just want to run your 10% race bonus Wit cards alongside Throne, or as a series of 2 with Throne if you don't believe you get enough Wit from it. Notably, Marvelous Sunday Wit has additional value in Ramp Up and Tail Health High. I'm going to grab a drink. As for advanced builds, we're going to do them now because the characters don't really give too much that I'm going to choose. Taiki Shuttle doesn't give you much. She only gives straightaway Adept, but when you go and put Kidison Black with Professor of Curvature, this is the build that has access to all the cards. You want to go and run a Guts build, I guess, and then run Bakashino as well as El Condorpasa to get the most number of hints and gold skills for stuff like Groundwork, Pace Chaser Straights, Corners, Pace Chaser Savvy, In High Spirits, Speed Star, Head On, etc. And then you just flesh out the build with more hints on prepared to pass with fine motion, as well as Yukino Bijin with perhaps a gamble, but most likely just getting playtimes over, and then thrown for the additional stats and skill points. And you can see, even with this build, that's a guts build, you're just kind of lacking in skills. And yes, you'll get some from Sakura Bakashino guts. You're most likely going to have to rely on your parents and your rival races for these. So if you have good parents, you are at an advantage against even the people who are running basically every single SSR card in the game. It's just parent building, and I know sprint parents are tough, but even just running turf parents that are really good and have a lot of white skills attached to them, or sacrificing a whole parent just for white skills, is quite powerful to do, just because all the cards don't really have many skills to grab. For the free-to-play build, Sakura Bakashino has Turbo Sprint in kit, which after the 7-1 change is a lot better. Obviously, if it doesn't pop up, don't grab it, but if it's not the 7-1 changes, don't grab it, but she does have Turbo Sprint, Pace Chaser Straights, and for the free-to-play builds, I say you have one SSR card, which will be Kittison Black, and then you fill up your guts with whatever it is, but that's not really going to give you many skills, and fill it out with a Marby Sunday and a Throne Wit. If you don't believe you have enough Wit, you can just 2-2-1 Throne and try to get Agnes Tachyon Wit as well. Otherwise, or just any of the other 10 race bonus cards. Otherwise, I think at that point, you should probably just run Speed Power Wit, because you can just grab a lot more skills with the Speed Power Wit build. I don't think it's going to be very far behind the Guts build. It's a very short final spurt. So the Speed Power Wit build, I think, is perfectly fine as well. And this goes for the full maxing build as well. I just don't think it's 100% necessary. It is powerful. Guts is very useful. But you can just run the 15% race bonus cards, grab the skills on the cards, have more skills than people, and still just speed carry over, hit double accel, and then win the game from there. For characters, the two primary characters that you're going to see a lot of people running are Nishino Flower, first of all, with Budding Blossom. You are borrowing this basically as a parent on every single Pace Chaser, so you get 0.4 where everyone else gets 0.2. Otherwise, Beeline Burst and Determined Descent in kit, I suggest the white version with a 15% speed and a 15% power is quite powerful for both the Guts build and the Speed Power Wit build as well. You can kind of run solo power with this amount of power bonus if you wish as well with Throne, and then you can basically go and hit max speed very easily and race a lot more. Taiki Shuttle's the other one. She gives you much less than the Nishino Flower, which is why I think she's a little bit less, but not really. Like, she's very powerful. 20% speed, 10% wit is also incredibly powerful, because you press the wit button and you get 30% amplification. Shooting for Victory is what you want on every Pace Chaser, and you just get 0.4, as well as Straightaway Adept and Pace Chaser Savvy in kit. However, if the 7-1 changes are to occur, there is a character I think is stronger than both, and I went and talked with some people on this, and I think they agree with me as well. But even though these get 0.4 and this gets 0.4, these are position-bound acceleration skills. Taiki Shuttle Camping has a ridiculous late race ultimate and neck in kit, which means that after the 7-1 changes, you have a 0.4 on a near perfect timing, and basically over half the time you're going to get greater value out of it than having Shooting for Victory. Now, you can put Shooting for Victory on her. It is good if it decides to happen. I don't think it's necessary, but you can even just add Nishino Flower plus neck and neck, hit both of those for 0.6. That's well enough acceleration. And then Joyful Voyage is better than Triumphant Pulse at 2 lengths or less from the leader. So basically, if you get the current speed version, which is just basically at this point a 0.5 on this track, if you get the current speed version, it's basically enough to win you the race. As simple as that, because it's 0.5 for 5 seconds, which will be the rest of the race, and that's like basically a ridiculous amount of lengths at that point. Otherwise, it's still just a 0.355 second. It's good, and then has neck and neck and kit. Very good aptitudes, very easy to build. This character is quite powerful, and you probably just speed whip build it because of the 30% power bonus, or you run Guts build with a bunch of speed bonus cards on your Guts cards. For 1 and 2 star characters, Sakura Bakashino unfortunately has medium G, which means if you want to go and run the sprint mile medium tracks, you would go and need to have at least 4 parents on that medium aptitude to get it up to C, or you can just run the sprint mile and just go and lose a bit of skill points. But she does have Turbo Sprint in kit, as well as pace chaser straights and 20% speed wit, which is powerful, especially for the free-to-play player. This will be probably your primary character as a pace chaser if you do not have many characters, because hey, sprint aptitude good. Genius Xbox Genius Victory is rather finicky because you kind of need to interrail this so that you can block side continue time equals 2, but if it does hit, it is speed carryover a lot of the times because it's just good. And from there, Sakura Bakshino, good character. We're going to get a little bit more tough. King Halo has Triumphant Pulse in kit. However, it is from 4th instead of 2nd, which is a lot worse. Usually you want to run this in the late surger position or the end closer position because you need that closing speed. But if you decide to run it in the pace chaser position, I don't even think it's that bad because you can still just hit 0.4 and win. And her main primary advantage is that her aptitudes are so good that you can basically just run every single race. You can probably even add the Arima Keenan with the long C. You probably can't run the Tenno Show, obviously, but the Arima Keenan with long C and like enough stam to hit the jokes before Japanese Oaks is probably enough to win that. And you're just going to have more skill points than everyone else in King Halo. You can just run her as late as well. But she is basically a clean slate. If you have good enough parents to go and put all the skills on her, she's pretty good. Air Groove has 10% speed, 20% power, which is her main primary advantage over everyone else. Blazing Pride is a mid-pack final corner pass. We talked about the toughness of that. You need something to prime it with a good pro curve proc or something, but if you do and you don't wide swing ridiculously and you're able to pass, it most likely will speed carry over at that point. Homestretch Hasten kit, quite good character as well. And then my auto top gun is a little bit tough because of the 20% stamina bonus, 10% guts. That's like one of the worst that you can have on a sprint track. She does have NSM in kit, but honestly, my auto top gun base is a little bit too tough, honestly. Also, I think she may even have Sprint G. Am I dumb? Let me just check that real quick. Sorry about that. I did not want to put a Sprint G character on her. She is indeed going to be Sprint D. Nope, she is completely buildable. So, no stopping me. Straightaway Adept in kit doesn't really give you that much. Other strong characters. Oguri Cap is ridiculous even with the Sprint E aptitude. The toughness that you're going to have in this character is finding 4 Sprint parents. Triumphant Pulse is a good skill, of course, and it is the best late race skill, honestly, besides maybe Taiki Shuttle camping on Taiki Shuttle. But Triumphant Pulse is just safe, 200 meters. If you hit your acceleration, and you're not enough to close out against that front runner or the other pace chaser that hits, this will steal you a ton of victories. Corner Connoisseur and Kit to gamble, as well as Nimble Navigator to gamble as well if you wish. Otherwise, put as many mid-race speed skills and possibly another late race speed if you really wish on this character. And she kind of builds herself. Just get that sprint aptitude up. Kurin Chan Wedding is powerful because her ultimate is basically a slightly 50-meter delayed Nishino Flower or Taiki Shuttle ultimate. Medium G is going to be a little tough, but 10% speed, power, wit is probably the best stat bonuses in the game at this point. Adored by all in kit as well as Turbo Sprint after the 7-1 changes. Otherwise, Intimidate is a minus 0.2. I kind of would suggest the white version unless you are running out of skill points because Intimidate versus Adored by all is only 25% better for Adored by all. It's not as much as a standard like normal skill would be. It's not 0.15 to 0.25. Air Groove Wedding. Eternal Moments can act as a primer, as I was calling them, because it is at the 50% mark. You need to be overtaking, which would also proc early as well, kind of like it's the is overtake condition. So you're not having to pass, you are trying to pass, which can prime it into it's on final corner passing combo, essentially. You also have the best stat bonuses for the guts build being 10 10 10 and speed power guts, corner con to gamble in kit with the ramp up in kit. So you have 2/3 of the pass combo there. You just add like a shadow break and there you go. You have a pass combo to high roll into a speed carry over Narita Bryan ultimate, in also pace chaser savvy. So I think she's actually rather good this time. Hishi Akibono. Do not underestimate the power of basically guaranteed mid-race in the CM. Again, this is going to happen at the 50% mark because you only burn 604 HP to get to that sector 15, which is the 60% mark, which would mean that you would need like 1,000 stamina plus to delay proc this, which means you generally just take this as the mid race that's going to proc before the final corner, that has an increased duration, that hopefully will hit your It's On, which hopefully will hit your Shadow Break. You see the combo that I've been trying to say here. 20% power is also very powerful, also the 10% guts for the guts build if you wish. This character slept on a little bit, man, especially in these sprint CMs. Like, it's quite good. As long as you have less than 1,000 stamina, you're going to proc your ult, so just don't get 1,000 stamina on a sprint track and you're good. Fuji Kaseki Ballroom. Ravi-san is very powerful. It is a final corner pass, which means it's really tough if you decide to wide swing. And by decide, I mean you randomly wide swing. Otherwise, Shrewd Step and Head On in Kit. Again, Head On the 7-1 changes, but like you have Speed Star in Kit, you have Shrewd Step, you have Head On, you have Right-Handed. You have 4 reliable skills, or I guess relevant skills on this track. And you have 8% speed, 8% wit, 14% power, which may be better than even the 10-10-10 because power is the hardest stat to grab in both of the builds. After the 7-1 change, you can run Fuji Kaseki base. Lights of Vaudeville will normally proc too early on Pace Chaser if the change does not go through, but with the 7-1 changes, it procking at 300 meters. If you hit your 0.4 Taiki plus Nishino Flower or Head On, you will go and have a very good late race ultimate on the level of Oguri Cap's Triumphant Pulse. So you basically have Tri-Pulse at 300 meters instead of 200 meters. Prepared to pass in Kit, but doesn't really give anything. It's kind of the Fuji Kaseki meme that she gives you nothing outside a mile. All right, going to go through the rest of the Pace Chasers. Just note that Pace Chasers have so many tools that you can kind of just run your Oshi as long as you're okay with trying to get that Aptitude S or Aptitude A, I guess, on the ones that are a little bit tougher, that are B or worse. Again, Turf S and Sprint S, I think Sprint S is still much better than Turf S, but they both are still fine. They're pretty good, and they're good buffs to have. Otherwise, any of the Pace Chasers that you can get Aptitude for work because you just have so many tools at your disposal. Curran-chan, look at Curran, is a hybrid ultimate that most likely will be on that final corner. It's 50 to 60%, I believe, so it is possible to speed carryover, but unlikely. So most likely you aren't leaking with this, so it's just guaranteed mid-race, or not guaranteed, but a passing mid-race that can happen early, which means it won't cause you to wide swing as often. Otherwise, just has a lot in Kit. Odor by all in Kit, which means you can get Intimidate if you like, or the full one if you have extra skill points. Prepared to pass, met measures for gambling, and ramp up, which means that you can, this will help you pass as well with Look at Curran. King Halo Cheerleader, you probably want to run this as a late surger, to be honest. A lot of Trace and Cheer requires back half of the pack, and the whole kind of game of Pace Chasers is to hit your early accel to get close to the front runners and hopefully be the front Pace Chaser to hit 3rd place or 4th place, right? It's kind of not what King Halo Cheerleader is trying to do, so I would suggest running her in the late surger position. Measure Ardent has tough sprint aptitude with Sprint E. However, she has 20% whip bonus and 10% speed bonus, which is really powerful because you want to press the whip button, which is good. Pace Chaser corners and Prepared to Pass in Kit. Lifelong Dream, Moment's Flight. We do not care about the HP recovery. Close to the runner behind on the final straight. Can proc early, but sometimes it might proc late if you are the first, like if you are the front. If you are the front Pace Chaser, there's no one in front of you, you could late proc this because the next person is a front runner who hasn't hit angling and scheming. And maybe the pack with the changes in 7-1 where front runners get panic mode essentially, or pace up EX mode, there may be enough of a gap that this late procs, but it is a little bit risky, but we do not care about the HP recovery, and this is a 0.45, and all it takes is just a little bit of a late proc, and you will get value from this ultimate. Sakura Chiyano O is 300 meters, which is safe if you hit your 0.4, and she has Head On in Kit, and Speed Star in Kit, and Corner Accel for the gambling. That's really like Speed Star and Head On is kind of insane in a kit like this. Sprint E is going to be a little tough, but basically you have guts build stats with 10% wit, 10% speed, and 10% guts. Or you can just run speed power wit. It's perfectly fine. You just load up on the power cards because you're going to need to hit that power up. Christmas Oguri Cap's just really tough because you don't need any of the recovery, so you're spending 700 skill points on a 0.3 accel when everyone has 0.4 accel anyways. Now you could just do this, or you could just run Corner Con on pretty much every other character, because Glittering Star is basically going to be the same thing and the same odds. Yes, it's technically slightly better, but the Christmas version of a Guri Cap, I'd run regular version over it. If you're trying to, I think you just Glittering Star gamble and you hope that you have enough mid-race from there. You could drop maybe one of the Nishinos for it because it'll be 0.5 in the situations where you're winning, but I still think you grab both of them and you try to hit 0.4 if this is your Oshi and you don't have base Oguri Cap. Symboli Rudolph Festival is better before the changes, and someone did finally correct me on it in the video prior. I understand now why this is a nerf. So on these shorter tracks, before this would be final corner, which means that you could speed carry over in the very difficult situation where you're actually being pressured for long enough. Now, unfortunately, it will proc in the late race, and it most likely will proc very early in the late race. Now, it does have an increased duration, which means you get some value from the ultimate because it's 6 seconds instead of 5. It's just this will be eaten partially by the acceleration zone. She does have straight descent in kit and pace chaser straights, but those are honestly minor things compared to a lot of the other characters in the game. Rice Shower, after the 7-1 changes, it is no longer final corner or later on the precondition. It is now late race, which means that the final straight is probably late enough that you will get some value from the ultimate. It is slightly eaten, but Blue Rose Closer is still a powerful late race ultimate, and if you hit enough accel, it is safe. Determined Descent in kit, a lot of people are just going to be playing this because of that. I still think you get the white version only. Blue Rose Closer will be partially eaten. Not the greatest bonuses at all. You probably run the 3-wit or 2-wit throne, 2 guts, and 1 speed deck because you really don't need 3 guts in order to get 1200 guts on this character. And there's 2 forces I want to talk about. First of all, I want to talk about Fine Motion Wedding because she is seriously powerful with neck and neck and kit if the 7-1 changes are to occur. She does have Sprint F, which means it's very difficult to hit that Sprint S, but Prepared to Pass and Firm Conditions in kit with Best Day Ever, which is a delayed on the final corner later increase velocity. You have a final corner pass, well positioned. Okay, so it's just final corner speed. The reason why I put this is because neck and neck in kit, but it's basically just final corner speed. You're not going to get the acceleration from this, and you have neck and neck in kit with a couple of supplementaries. She is quite powerful with the 20% whip bonus. Also, I want to mention Toketeo because Moments community will, complain if I don't, but Sky High Tail Step is getting buffed to be late race. Most likely it's going to be eaten partially by the accel zone because you do require 2 seconds of overtake target time still. But no, it is a little bit less finicky than before because you don't need overtake target on the final straight. Now you only need it in the late race. So most likely you are overtaking people as time goes on. Now position 1st through 3rd, again precondition from there. You're most likely hitting 4th into 3rd, having an overtake target, and at that point you will hit it. So most likely it will slightly late proc, although this is a force as well. Technician in kit, which means you have, I guess, gold Shrewd Step with 0.3 is not efficient. 20% speed bonus, nothing really to write home about, but she does exist, and I used her in the thumbnail before. So as your checklist, again, the stats are on the screen. Speed, power, wit deck wants to max speed, power, and wit best they can. The guts build can sacrifice a tiny bit of power, but honestly, power is very powerful and wit's very powerful, so try not to sacrifice too much for guts. Guts is still a luxury stat, so try to hit your stats best you can. If you don't hit exactly these, it's perfectly fine. Stamina is fake and all that. Grab your primary accelerations. Your borrows will probably be either Shooting for Victory, Taiki Shuttle, or Budding Blossom, or try to get both. Head on and Nimble Navigator head on and neck and neck, are good after the 7-1 change. Before that, they are gamble excels. Mid-race speed skills, corner skills are all mid-race speed skills. Try to get Sprint S or Turf S. Sprint S is better than Turf S in my opinion. Get your late race speed. Try to grab more mid-race, more late race as optionals. And then after that, you can get your Shrewd Step. You can get your Determined Descent or your Straight Descent. And then speed, I think, is better than power, which is equal to wit, which is better than guts. Guts is still, in my opinion, a luxury stat to have. So that has been the Pace Chaser guide. Sorry, my voice has been dying the whole time, but we have 3 more roll guides for me to do. They will be out in the coming week, and then a debrief video when time goes on. I hope you've enjoyed this. The only thing left is for me to thank my members. I thank you to all the members. Memberships are appreciated. I do not try to gatekeep content, so they're not required. You can see the benefits that you get with them. They're nothing too substantial, but I do appreciate you all, and I appreciate those who have supported the channel financially, I guess. So for those in the board tier, I do shout out their names at the end of the overview video, and I've been doing it for all the role guides as well because there's not too many of them. But thank you especially to Kikuzi IRL, Immobility, Mr. Merit 1, Crest of Gautier, Lucifel, Oguri Capita Burger, Peter Van San, Oscar Van Bruce, Misha Sage, CD Agren, Sorcerer, Elise Bright, Trevor Overtone, Delegante, Etep Pete, Astrosarian, Eva Delta, Tokai Teo Monarch, Scraps, and Efflorescence. So, thank you all. Appreciate you all watching. Good luck building your Pace Chasers. I probably will do, we'll see. Might be the front runner, might be the late surger. We'll see from there. Take care, everyone. Burb out.